Greetings! Welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of Golarion with me today? Yes, the setting of the Pathfinder role-playing game system. We're going to be heading back to Golarion. Back to TNZ once more. I've seen it in my other videos. We're going to be visiting the country of Songbai. So if you're ready to join me, I am your host and guide, your Tansnar van Dracovin. I will outreach my hand. I'll open up the gateway to Golarion to take us through the universe to this alternate world that's connected to ours. We'll technically be heading through time, too, because we'll be heading to its future with how things are connected to our world. But regardless, though, please do remember to give a little bit of a tip or a little bit of help here. Like, subscribe, ring the bell over the YouTube side of things if you can, and let me know what you think of Songbai in the description below. The gate is open. My hand is ready and outstretched. Are you ready to go? To Songbai. We arrive to TNZ, to Songbai, a place of, well, much bloodshed, much danger, also of much beauty. That is Songbai. But if we were to learn more about it, deep dive into its history, its information, learn about it, more than just some of the sources and information I talk about, there is free book section. Now, I do focus on the bulk on the bottom there, the TNZ World Guide. But from first edition, you will also get the Dragon Empire's Gazetteer and Dragon Empire's Primer, which did give some information there. That'll kind of give you a little bit more of a historical thing, because, well, a lot of stuff happens between that time period and now. Turns out, you know, when you're living in a tumultuous period, stuff happens quick. Yep. Anyway. Songbai, as it's called right now. It has been known by other names in the past. Qianlei. Songbai, of course, is a name that it was under the Imperial Long Law. Shokuro, for a time period, once it was liberated from not only Long Law, but Lingsni's tyranny. And now, once again, Songbai. Perhaps as connecting up with those people that are more native to the region. We'll talk all about it and why perhaps this change of name has occurred yet again. Sometimes it's also known as the Kingdom of Exiled Samurai. It is a nation ruled from its capital of Bukinami under the Shokoro Akatori. Hence why the name was Shokoru for a while. It was named after the ruler. But again, probably in his failing health, changing tides of things, stuff like that. He basically, time-wise, about 8 years ago, he returned the name to the traditional song. Shokoru, basically, you know, my health is in decline, things are not going as well, let's try to unite people with some of the good histories. Is a nation that is known for its grain. It's a breadbasket. So alcohol, drugs, produce, seafood, cheese, milk, salt, spices, livestock, teas, all here things. On the other hand, after everything that's happened to it, military has also come out. So armor, weapon, and mercenaries also have become very major things. And its humans are the main people here. So Kitsune, Nagaji, Tengu, Yaobai all make their homes here. But Kitsune, well, that's a story we'll have to go through. So the Sun Shogun, Shokuro Akatori, still rules this place. Let's kind of talk about some of that history and some of the things that happened here. Kind of stories of Songbai. Now, there are two kind of time periods we can talk about. One deals with the land itself, which we'll talk about in a minute. But really should we talk about Longhua, its collapse, and then the conquest of Songbai. Because this is really the part of this that calls this actual region into a nation that it is. So I think that's why I'm going to kind of separate this history out and leave Qianlei a little later. We talk about the land. So, as it is now, Songbai is a land of fertile plains, shining rivers. It is agriculture in a nutshell. Abundant rice and sorghum. Trees heavy with lychee and pomelos. Lunghwa historians record how Kirin, powerful magical creatures, celestial creatures, were drawn to the land, descended from the heavens to sip the waters here. This was a pristine garden, where mortals aged gracefully, and immortals frolic eternally. But even if that beauty can be seen now, there's troubles both past and present that are deep within Songbai's wings. It was always the center of Lunghwa. So as soon as Lunghwa collapsed, it became a prize. The great art, culture, central region, people wanted it. And they wanted it because it would help unify successor states, rebuild Lunghwa on a lot of ways. So, once Lunghwa collapsed, though, first thing that Songbai had was rivalries, rebellion, civil war. That's what fell first. That's what first destroyed the peace of Songbai. Battling each other. They were weakened. Basically, the four main provinces fought each other for supremacy, destroying each other in a lot of ways. And then the Lingshanese armies came. Lingshan, wanting to rebuild the empire themselves, took over. They weren't in a position to fight back. And they favored pillory and lash, basically working the farmers to half-dead desperation. There were protests, but they were met with maiming and murder. Yeah, or rewarded outright resistance by eradicating entire bloodlines. Rebellions persisted. Disenfranchised landowners and peasants gathered together in guerrilla campaigns, and blood and tears were shed upon the lands. This clash went on for quite a while. And then about 50 years ago, we get Akator. He was a Minkain samurai who was exiled basically for a cruel lord's regicide, turning against a cruel lord. And he decided to arrive here and aid the Songhainese rebellion. He bolstered the nation's irregulars. He brokered an alliance with samurai's followers, local rebels, and forces from two of the neighbor nations, Jinin and Limbare, which at the time was known as Amandar. So these two neighboring nations who wanted probably peace in the region and no imperial and no conquering people, combined with some samurais that came along with him and the rebels, he united this force together. He even behested the Songbai's nobles. He remained at their behest once they had won the day. Once they'd shattered Lingshan in the Lingshan War, as it was known as. They wanted to stay. And so he became the Sun Shogun and established the Shikoru Shogunate. That's why Shikoru was the name of the nation for that many years. Now, Akitori, though, was a good leader. He needed to temper strength with grace. He made sure that the fortifications, garrisons, he did so managing to kind of loosen the tensions and traditions of benevolence and sensitivity. He balanced all professions' concerns, reassuring Loken, Tianshu peasants, and merchants, where the new regime would privilege the Tianmin samurai warrior scholars who migrated here. And in the decades, it worked. Diverse cultures and social classes developed, and the land worked. But now, as the nation once again takes the name Songbai, well, things aren't good. Akatori's better. He devoted his life to building the nation, and so he married very late. And he has no adult heir. He has a young toddler daughter to take over, but she's too young. And he's old and sick. So now he worries about rival vassals prepared to siege power to preserve the shogunate. Civil war with his death. The provincial lords raising levies, arming bringing pack armies and arsenals together, discontent, content surging, thinking that maybe war will return. But there's one sign of hope. Something that has happened. In all those years of war, in all those years of blood, everything that happened after the fall of the Imperial Lungwall, Kirin disappeared. Many years, and they were gone. Kirin, my sight. Hope is there. To talk about this land, Songbai, we must also then visit the history of the land, not the nation. Because this place here wasn't always habitable. Before 6799, Lungwall historians called this land Kian Le, which meant 1,000 tiers, because the flooding rivers that crisscrossed the Sea of Eels. The inland sea was larger. The rainy seasons had huge monsoons, and the Shangguan Desert summer storms. Basically, Queen Lei's rivers drowned with sediment. Settling this place, horrible. Philosophers of Lungwall saw that the heaven was forbidding it. But a lot of the emperors wanted to exploit the place here. The soil was great. A lot of nutrients. Great place to graze things. But large-scale projects were washed away in the rain. Only people that lived here were the Huli Jin, the nomadic Kitsune, which were the original cultivators of this land. Now, at some point, who Lungwall historians credit, Duke Guan Liang, an ancestor of Lingshan's ruling dynasty, transformed this land. The sort of legendary account of Duke Guan, that he beheld a Kirin sipping at the waters and claimed that he kind of had as a celestial mandate to quell the floods. He sought enlightenment atop Quilei's eastern mountains to solve the quandary. Records are sparse, enigmatic, married with, legend, but we know the Duke succeeded. They gained some innovations in irrigation, drove out the muddy Quilei's native Hui Jing to cultivate the golden green Songbai, so the Kitsune would draw out. Lands were stolen. Lungwall was not a great place. This agricultural verdancy that was built by this innovations has lasted, both through Lungwall's collapse, Lingshan's annexation, and there's in Songbai today, portrait plant. There's subtropical and temperate climates, lots of fruits and grains that grow all different seasons, plum and orchard fields that are famed for the sweetness and size of their plums and arid fruits, rain-kissed Ome Valley hosts distilleries in the shogunate, brewing the finest spirits and rice wines, the controlled flooding of the Sea of Eels into the Quilly Plateau waterways reduces cataclysmic deluges that can occur, and allowing multiple yearly plantings. And dragon eels that swim to the sea to spawn provide foolhardy fishers that catch of incredible size. We're basically death because, they're dragon eels. They have that name for a reason. Yeah, it's a lot of good meat that can get you a lot of money, but it also will probably eat you. Salt fields, fisheries, bring the shallow sea, produce useful minerals, hauls of fish, crustaceans, and mollusks. When the flooding recedes, the long plains emerge in the south. Originally grasslands for horses and livestock, they became battlefields in a lot of the conflicts after Lungwall's collapse. So, through all the occupation and rebellion, that southern region, it's ideal along plains for settlement, but served by rivers yet sheltered by storms by the mountains and the forests that are there. The lives lost, though, during the wars, basically, people think the place is haunted. Ghosts, evil spirits. So it's pretty underdeveloped, It's a lot of major battles happen there. People don't like it there. So it's underdeveloped, and horse tamers, envoys, traders, mercenaries, and some gangs of bandits seem to be the only ones that are willing to test the spirits, so to say. Someone is. Not many. Let's talk about the cities. Dragon Eel Port. I love the name of this place. It is called Dragon Eel Port. It's an enclave of one of the four noble houses, the Hu clan. It overlooks the Sea of Eels, and it controls maritime trade for Songbai. Representatives from the shogunate and the four notables collaborate to coordinate prices for grains and other commodities. Goken advisors have arrived to help the shogunate, reducing the reliance on notable brokerage. As shogunate notable cooperation has fallen, tensions have risen. So, one of the four notables. I'm sorry, they're called the notables. I wouldn't call them nobles, but the four main noble families are the four notables. We go from Dragon Eel Port to Gao Bai, named after the Tian phrase for goodbye. I love this one too. Is the tradeway for the humbler overland river Rhine roads. Traders replenish supplies, rub shoulders with soldiers, inns brew a variety of famed Sogrum liquor called Gao Beiju, probably butchering that one a little bit. And they pair it with peppercorn fried meat dishes. Delicious. Security is lax because it's close to the, surprisingly lax for being close to the Lingshan-Songhai border. But both states avoid over-patrolling because they avoid international incidents. So it's a place that's popular with bandits, fugitives, adventurers. Of course, there's the capital, Mukanami, who's built on the ruins of an ancient city destroyed during the Lingshan War and faces the inland sea. It does have an ethnic composition. The agriculture mixes Tianshu and Tianmin buildings, where shogunate castles and shrines stand beside Songbanese courtyards and pagodas. The shogun's palace and offices. Mukanami also boasts the best academies and archives. Scholars assist with research in specialized subjects from early Yingxin sovereign dragon art to contemporary Alkenstar meteorology. Inscribes ghostwrite dissertations and assemble almanacs. Jinganao rumors claim that all four notables, erudite, Gotsun clan masters of the old city, basically they all the four notables connected. I can sometimes speak English well. Yes. Anyway. There are a couple other cities that we know the names of because of those earlier books. Fortress Tafun is a smaller settlement, but is a large town, but it's still smaller than some of the other settlements that are there. Basically, it's smaller than like Mukanami and another one of the larger settlements, Tupac. Kashinek, a sizable town, again smaller than Big Orlings here. Nesting Swallow in the central region of Songbai. Tupai, the second largest city, almost in the heart of Tianzi itself. And only the Mukanami has a larger population. So there's a couple other cities that we know by name more than anything. Again, check out Dragon. Let's talk about the important people in the government. This is someone who is important in the government, and I'll explain how. This nice lady, Shizuka. She isn't the only one. There will be others. But we'll explain why she's important. So, who's in charge? Well, the Shokaro Shogunate is in charge. It's a military government that was made by the Sun Shogun, Shokuru Akatori. He's supported by his fellow Minkai samurai and local landlords. He is ill from disease, and so he still is humble and has a great charisma. His daughter, Shokuru Himari, is a toddler. She can't assume power. She's too young. So currently, the seven Radiances, Akatori's trusted sworn siblings from the Lingxing War, basically oversee state affairs. So why he is sick and his daughter's too young, basically his trusted advisors, the people that were by his side in the Lingxing War, are there. They're also quite old. So it's not really a long-term viable plan. Because, remember, they were at his side during the big war. And he's old and fought the war. So yeah. Akatori had a lot of vision for this new shogunate. He didn't have money. And that's where he got the four murders. Basically, 4 families of Tianshu in the provincial Songbanese lords attending Longwa's collapse. Basically, these were the 4 big, you could almost say noble families in Songbai after the collapse. Remember we talked about 4 provinces battling each other, weakening things for Lingshan to come in? These were like the people of the Hard Wars. The Gongshun were descendants of deposed Yixing royalty, an even older empire before Lunghua. The Hu, harbor masters of the Sea of Eels. The Ma, raiders and tamers of horse. And the Yetsha, unconventional ceramicists of the Eastern Mountains. They gave money, they gave support, and they wanted support then with Tianshu cultural matters. They gained advisory positions adjacent to shogunate. They were able to influence and veto decisions through financial and social power. A lot of Team Min samurai, steeped in their heroic idealism, basically don't really like this nepotism that's in here too. But again, it's trying to strike a balance between them. Now we get to Shizuka and her brother, Sato. I'll show you a picture of Sato later. But these two are locked in a struggle that could spell terrible things for this land. They're Akatori's grandchildren. Basically, Akatori had a marriage before he was exiled from Minkai. He divorced his spouse, Tomoni, basically because when he was being exiled, he didn't want her to be caught up in the punishment. He didn't know she was a child. Now Akatori redeemed his honor overseas, but Tomoni, who's already filled for her supernatural visions, she's Oracle, basically had society disdain twice for being divorced and being linked to a criminal. It didn't work divorcing her. He should have just taken her. Akatori didn't contact her, so she journeyed alone to Songbai and started a new life as a village healer and raised her daughter. This child, Kaio, who became a herbalist, would have progeny of her own. Twins, Sato and Shizuka. They had their grandparents' aptitude for both steel and spell. One's a magus, and a summoner. They didn't know anything of the family's past, though. They did not know that the shogun is their grandfather. When they reached adults, they did learn. Masanori, a Tianmin underboss, basically a family friend, and a Golden League Zun, would help school and protect Kyo's family, told them. He wanted the twins to present themselves to the 7 Radiances, promising League aid in nominating them as shogunate viceroys to preserve the land's peace. So that's what he wanted. He wanted to ensure some peace. But the recent exodus of Minkai and Millerists into Songbai, because the change in government in Minkai, the original change drove a bunch of exiles to Songbai. That government that was removed then, and the old way was put back, exiled more people. They're militarists. And so, Masanori fears that these and his league rivals will make power plays and expects involvement in Akatori's persistent illness. Masanori has underestimated Sato's. Sato's disappeared. he has contempt of all this year. Of the kidnapping, slaying, and he's contemplated kidnapping and slaying his young aunt, Imar, who would hasten civil war and destroy the Shogunate that basically rob his family of happiness and strike at his ailing grandfather's heart. Yeah. Her brother wants to assassinate his toddler aunt, possibly. Start civil war. Shizuka understands her twin's ruinations, but she doesn't want him to go this far. It's too much. She's hoping to prevent his resentment from consuming his soul and save him. So there's a battle between these two twins of skill who are descended from the Shogun who could spark the civil war. Heck of a stuff going on in the background. Heck of a stuff going on in the background. Let's switch gears, though. As much as fun it is to talk about the insanity that's going on in the macro scale, let's zoom down into what it means to be a person who is. So, Songbai used the Yixing-era method of dividing each day into a dozen double hours, with each double hour corresponding to different directions and astrological significance. You're a peasant, you wake up before dawn, you're ready for the day. Crops, weed, milk, fish, all get done early. It's more comfortable toiling in the chillier periods of the day before daybreak. Making late means you're working under the blazing sun. So as courtesy, if you're a commoner in Songbai, you wake up, you sing out some folk songs while you're preparing breakfast. Basically, the idea is you'll, in a very discreet and polite way, wake your neighbor who may have overslept, so that they can also be ready for their daily meals. Soldiers, as an important part of this nation now, wake up early, rising at dawn. Basically, one double hour after the farmers. Still taking advantage of the cooler morning to basically train. Samurai have their tough austerities for endurance and focus, where they will have cross-country runs, meditate under a waterfall. Lower-ranked soldiers basically have some conditioning exercise and weapon practice, and they wait for the samurai to finish up his whatever the heck he's doing over there under the waterfall, and then place bets on who has to cook that day. The winners usually chip in to pay for the cook's refreshments, though, to basically preserve harmony and gastric welfare. Just because, if you're the one that ends up on there, you're still going to want to, have some people chip in. After the double hour after dawn, the sun comes out. Merchants and scribes open up shops, customers and visitors. Indoor professions that are self for the elements, don't worry about the sun, begin their work. They still like to work in the day hours. It saves money on candles, lanterns. The ports and port houses are the busiest at this time of day, tallying, checking duties. Boats carrying cargo and passengers come and go. In the afternoon, sun's hot. It's oppressive. So many peasants and soldiers take a break. Business people and academies get more of their work done. So to beat the heat, people turn to sweet and sour dried fruit, plums or apricots, which are eaten or boiled with assar fruit and candied winter melon for broths. Devout Shizrans advocate a midday exercise to absorb the solar goddess' blessing for one of the body and spirit. Some say that's injurious to your ki, so don't do that kind of thing. But it's a time for commerce, study, less strenuous work, drying foodstuffs, weaving nets. That's what midday's for. Within peacetime, that's been kind of prosperous currently, at least for now. There's also disposable income. So it's a leisure time, midday. There have been eateries catering professionals and youths. They serve light snacks alongside teas, sometimes alcohol or other legal drugs. These meals are eaten in community in Songbai, and businesses market themselves as tea houses to draw customers from conservative items. Instead of going out to eat, you go out for tea. It annoys older generations because they have their own tea stores, and they think the youth are wasting their hard-earned money to go out to a tea house, which are, because it basically tradition says you eat the meals communally, but going out and eating in a restaurant basically in the middle of the day. you're going out for tea. In the evening, people retreat to the household for safety. This was developed as a habit during Linguini's occupation, because they had curfews. There's dinner, chit-chat, socializing, studying, and then you turn in to rest for the next day. Or you sneak out. A lot of gambling houses, wine joints, and pleasure dens that are out there. The Golden League, which basically put down roots in Songbai during their flight over from Minkai 150 years ago, have a lot of places. And they profit from catering to the legitimate to illicit appetites of both samurai and peasant alike. And their employees collect information and debts for blackmail. Crime rate's low, though. Crime is low. Because the League captures and sends felons and bandits to shogunate detectives. Basically, they're the only ones that can do anything that's on the edge of legality in this nation, and if you're going to disrupt their business, they'll make sure you don't. You tongue wag a little bit too much, gossip, perhaps about the cooperation between the League and the shogunate, well, you might just disagree. Turns out, perhaps the shogunate gets a little bit more of that money also from the League. Let's talk about seasons and holidays in Song. So, we start with, of course, spring. And for them, it begins with the Daikatsu Dressing Festival, right after winter. In those snowy months, families will basically string together hewed rice into garments and use bamboo and wood to craft statues of the Lady of Foxes. After the solstice, parents and children dress these statues in their rice robes and carry them to the frozen fields. Volunteers kind of dress up as monsters to mock rampage, and upon seeing the statues, basically flee in terror, saying the vitality is returning to the land. Spring Harmony is a bunch of reunions and feasting that announces springs. All Songmanies try not to miss this festival, and immigrants take great efforts to rejoin families in their ancestral homes. Peasants use the time to gather, utilize family members to prepare rice fields. And when it ends, the family's separated again. And the rice everyone planted together can be eaten by the remaining relatives. So families link to each other, preserve the bonds, and last year's crops are prepared into special cakes and sweets that alongside with fruit, oranges, pomelo, peaches. In summer, Tea and Shu families venerate Pharasma and Abadar during Ancestors Week, which is a variant of Ancestors Day, where they offer prayers to their forebears, clean ancestral graves, ensure grave sites remain undisturbed. The summer saw heavy fighting during the Linguini's War. Conscripts favored summer campaigns since they planted crops in spring, returned to get them in the fall. Generals observed these rhythms in fear of having no crops to ransack. Despite being summer, everyone basically lost someone during the war, so it was a time for loved ones and sharing holidays. Families light incense, share steamed sourdough rice cakes, enjoy their company. Have impromptu picnics near cemeteries, reassuring their loved ones that they won't forget each other. In the Tian Min communities, the smiling sun is celebrating the bright state summer. It's a coming-of-age ceremonies where Shizuran priests bless young samurai youths as they begin their journey to adulthood. They destroy proficiency in aesthetic, martial, and scholarly arts. The elders and teachers, beaming approval of them, basically shogunate patrons, both Shizuran and Susumin philosophers will tend to these ceremonies, compelling to nurture a new generation of samurai. So this is when many young samurai enter the youth's lord's service and wield swords in deadly earnest for the first time. There are two major festivals that take place in autumn, one significant to Tianshu and Tianmin. Among the Tianshu is the Kirin Wishing Festival, from the Long Wall era, when the Kirin tamed the wild floods and followed Long Wall settlements, basically. The Songbai climate allowed for double harvest. This occasion also serves as a planting festival for farmers to commemorate their second year of the crop. The Scabbard's Dream is special to Tianmin. It commemorates the ending of the Lingshan War, as well as the shogunate's founding. Many samurai display new skills that they've earned over the year. Winters refers to as fox home. The indigenous Huiling have been, intentionally or otherwise, marginally in Songbai. It's human enough. this festival and winter in general are a time for humans to basically butter up the fox folk and be like, hey, sorry for, like, taking over your land and stuff. Our ancestors did that. Kind of, thumbs up? Huh? Farmers strive to ensure no Huli Jing perishes during the winter. Basically, they worry it'll spur on Daikiku's wrath. They invite them to stay in their household, clothe, feed them as guests of the season. This has some practical benefits to the Huli Jing, but it still reeks of basically apologetic tokenism, And some older of the fox folk will claim that this the Daiku dressing festival is basically cultural appreciation of one of their traditions that still happens. So, yeah, it's still not great. They're trying, but again, there's a lot of problems left over from everything else. Longhua did a lot of bad things. You go back and blame them. So, there are two main cultures that really hit Songbainese culture. Min, Shu. They're the two main ethnic groups. And a lot of ideas happen from both of them. Shu are descended from Longhua prisoners. Min are settlers that have a deep appreciation for nature and the environment. So basically, they have different traditions that may sometimes clash, may sometimes meet. Shu have oral histories that cautiously emphasize nature's awesome power. Min records praise nature's awe-inspiring beauty. Shu people commemorate the lives lost to Kuei-Li's deluge in a story of song. Queen Min paintings and verses capture Songbai's post-war panoramas. First, historically, Songbai followed a cultural homogeneous imperial regime where loyalist Lingonese Shu warriors enjoyed power over feudal Songbainese Shu farmers. Political traditions were drawn along social class rather than ethnicity. This has changed to this cultural distinction between the samurai-led shogunate, basically having this new political and ethnic diversity that's going on here. An immigrant of conservative Min warriors, after what happened in Minkai's vastly influenced reformation, the new queen over there, yeah, these highlight districts are even more. Wealthy Minkai exiles with excellent pedigrees, martial skills that have gained great prominence and influence within the shogunate. Many Shu youths and Min anti-militarists have begun to wonder if this has a future here. There's this new military group kind of moving in. Perhaps to kind of bury the tensions, many people within, whether Shu or Min, claim basically no racism exists in Songbai. Minorities might disagree, though. Expatriate elves from Janai, diaspora Limbarans, basically Linshan war veterans and their families, indigenous Kitsune, and Kuyos, bridges, as is the colloquial term for it, which are basically Shu and Min children, born from both of them, the Kuyos. The Jingsei and Limbarans have experienced exoticism and positive stereotypes as war heroes, while Kitsune kind of suffer from humanity's encroachment since the Longhua. Lingshan soldiers have terraformed their lands, displaced them in their communities, appropriated their traditions. The queers are often seen as outsiders to both communities, and can't find acceptance in some. Some migrate to Limbaran, hoping to find basically better things there because it's a much more multicultural place. Limbaran really is. So these children of two worlds, unfortunately, kind of have to do that. The Shu, Min work together, live together, but they don't integrate probably as much as they should in a lot of ways. 50 years is not enough for them to truly become one culture, one nation. They're still very separate. For everyday jest, Shu have the shufu. It's a traditional flowing robe and skirt. In agrarian society, basically laboring under the rain, these are tailored and layered on for more protection of the elements, or taken off for more cooling. A lot of Shu consider their hair a gift from their parents and wear it long. fastening up in top knots or with ribbons and pins. Tien Min also wear their hair in top knots, but more traditional samurai keep the top in front of their head shaved. Tien Min and Tien Shu both tend to keep their fingernails trimmed, the exception being tycoons and courtiers who keep their nails long to flaunt the fact that they have no need to perform manual labor. Here he is, as we talk a little bit more about war for just a second. There's Sato, who could really create some trouble with his quest for vengeance in a lot of ways, against the slate from his family. It's been 50 years since the Lingshan War. It's still felt. Trauma has shaped the discourse here, especially on warfare and security. Different communities construct and invoke different memories according to particular customs. Older Tien Shu soldiers that fought in the war, many skew patriotic displays and nostalgia fever. Those veterans often possess complex relationships with Lingsanese that they fought and slew. Conscripts on both sides may have strange kinfolk or former friends caught up in the feudal strife. Many remember the war as part of a long occupation where sacrifices and betrayals were made for survival. So if they're interviewed about their experiences, Tien Shu elders will cry, not elaborate. On the other hand, there's an odd than Tien Min veterans, who fought along their allies Fib, Jinin, and Limbar. They remember the war straightforward, as a glorious campaign of liberation against imperial tyranny. For many samurai, this victory of the war was doubly eminent. It redeemed the lost honor of many of these exiles from Minkai. It marks the shogunate's inception. Kitsune, well, they've already lost a lot to humanity. They keep to themselves about all this has happened. They served as scouts and auxiliary troops for one side or the other during the war. Basically, and then got the opposition's wrath upon communities. So they learned the hard way to keep themselves when human armies stood there. Getting involved did not end well. But, yeah. A land scarred by war. A land that is a fertile place of much green and food and light in a lot of ways. Here, descended. But those scars, those wars, those battles, they remain fresh. That's what haunts Songbai. And certainly, war could be on the future. That's something that cannot be perhaps avoided. The twins, who I talk about. The fact that Shogun's died. He's old. His counsel to possibly replace him until his daughter is old enough. Still also old. Frail. Things are at a razor's edge. And of course the problems with full notables. The immigration of more conservative, militaristic Minkai exiles. The Golden. There are a lot of hands in the pot of Songbai currently. All of this is because of Lung Hua, who founded and settled this place, and Lingshan, who, after Lung Hua fell, basically conquered the place and ruled with an iron fist. It's so interesting to say that Lung Hua, a notorious empire for notoriously bad things, was better than Lingshan. But they were. They settled this place. They made it their breadbasket. They didn't need to do anything horrible to it. They didn't conquer this. Well, they did conquer this place, and unfortunately, a lot of horrible things to the Kitsune natives. But being that they're still here, still alive, it's good for them. But again, it just goes to show there's a history of some very negative things with Lung Hua and Lingshan, and Songbai has these scars. It's a scarred nation. One that is finding a footing after everything that's done, but that footing is loose. Will it collapse? Will it fall in civil war? Will it be open to invasion from new enemies? Hard to say. certainly speaking, there's the possibility. There's also the possibility that the strength that's been being developed between these two people, Tian Shu and Tian Min people that are living here, may lead to something greater. Something that can come out of here, tempered through the rocky times. Both are possibilities. These two people that have learned to live together can live together, but just haven't had that meshing, the gelling. Not like the capital has, where you can see it meshing. It hasn't truly occurred yet. And it might. And that also might have a civilization. The two ethnic groups finally becoming a little bit more one, understanding each other a little bit more, being a little bit more connected than they are. There's so much interesting stuff about Songbai, from its history to where it could possibly go now, to its people. People are hardy, people have gone through a lot, and you know where they're going. Most. I hope you enjoy. Learning all. Alright, I will leave that there. Please make sure to check out all of my other stuff, whether it's over on Twitch or YouTube. I hope you enjoy diving into this. We'll do more TNZ, more Pathfinder, more stuff in the future, more countries and places. More world. If you're over on the Twitch side of things, that's where I do all my live recordings. I do live plays of TTRPGs. Fall of Athens Falls is going to be new ones starting out Wednesdays at 8 soon. Discussing tabletop, Saturdays at 6. Me and friends come together, we talk about news of the week, we discussion topics that would help you out with your RPG games. Check that out. And of course, I do some gaming, both with friends and on my own, since it's variety gaming that's over on the channel too. Everything but the gaming, all the tabletop per se stuff, you can find that over on the YouTube side. So if you want to go over there and just, give that support over there, the like and subscribe and develop this video, give a quick nod. Let me know what you think about Songbai. That's a really good place to see it all. All of it goes over there. You want to check out what's going on with me, dates to the schedule of uploads, when I'm doing stuff live, when I'm doing it up on YouTube. That's on my social media. Discord, Blue Sky, X/Twitter. Check those out. In that order, Discord's the place I usually do most things, followed by the other two. But again, most of the time I do keep updates on stuff that you can share. Anyway, what if you like? I'm going to Twitch chat, do some other stuff. Until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.